is with thee. Do we have any former Catholics here today? No, okay, that's good. If we would have identified them by them jumping up and running out. My father was raised in a strict Lithuanian Catholic household, and he became a recovering Catholic and didn't return to church until later in life, and that would have sent him sprinting out the door. Too many Hail Marys when he was a troublesome youth. This third Sunday of Advent, we turn our attention to Mary. We light the pink candle, and I am glad for it, and I hope you are glad for it too. This is my favorite Sunday in Advent, where we get to spend a moment with Mary, and I think that this is a Mary moment in the life of our congregation, in the life of our nation. I think this is a moment for Mary and what she can teach us. So we know, because we are educated people, we know our history, we have read our scriptures, we know that the world that Mary inhabited and lived in was very different than the world we live in. We have traveled, most of us. Some of us have even been outside the state, gone as far as Idaho or maybe Oregon. A few of you have traveled to other countries, or maybe even from other countries. And we know that cultures are different, right? We know that languages are different, and value systems can be quite different, and symbols and meanings can be different, and even the social contract can be different. I hear that there's even a few places where they drive on the wrong side of the road. If you can imagine such a thing, Jack and Rose, I don't know. Just drive on the wrong side of the road. So we know, I mean, all kidding aside, we know that the world that Mary lived in was different than our own, right? Family structures could be different. The economy played out differently. How people are valued could be quite different. But there's also some similarities as well. There were haves and have-nots. There were people who were powerful and wealthy and people who were not. There were those who were shunned and disenfranchised and those who did the shunning. So we can understand some of Mary's life. And in fact, we can find some similarities. And one of those similarities that I think we can latch onto between us and Mary is that she was a nobody from nowhere who was pretty much powerless. And in all honesty, so are we. And I don't want you to get offended by that, because I'm not saying that you're not important or meaningful or worthwhile. It's just that each of us, when we look out at this big, beautiful, but very broken world, we feel pretty powerless to do much of anything. I've gotten to know you quite well, I think, over the past, has it been a year and a half already? I think so. Does that sound right? Yeah, wow. And there are a few things I don't doubt, and one of them is your caring hearts. That if each of you had a magic wand to reduce suffering in the world and create more justice and more housing and more food and more acceptance, that you would wave that wand without hesitation. And so I think each of us, though, we feel powerless. We look out at the world, we look at situations, and we wish we could make it better. But we just don't have the power. We don't have the status. We don't have the wealth. As good United Methodists and good people of faith, as we pay attention to the world, we read the headlines, we pay attention to the news, and in biblical language, I think we could safely say that the world and creation is groaning under the stress. And even when we do something, in all honesty, sometimes it feels like a drop in the bucket. we may think, as we look out at this big world and all its challenges and troubles and brokenness, we might think, I'm just one person. And nobody's elected us ruler of the universe yet, despite our wish that they might do so. Nobody has given us that magic wand yet. And so we just sit here and we think, I'm just one person. And then we ask the question, what can I do? What can I do? But I believe that the call of faith, as followers of Jesus, we're invited to consider a different question. Whereas sometimes we ask, what can I do? We're encouraged and invited today, with Mary's help, to consider a different question, one that's rooted in hope and action. And that question is, what is mine to do? Not just what can I do, but what is mine to do? This week's scripture calls us to what I think is a simple truth, but it's also very profound, and it's that we can't do it all. We can't. For as busy as Maggie and Paul are, they can't do it all. They can't fix the economy. Or can you? Can you? No? Okay. I just want to check. I don't want to assume anything. But we can do, each of us, something that matters. Now, I know I've shared this before, but our memories, including mine, are pretty bad, so I'm going to share it again, and it'll be like the first time for all of us, I bet. And as I say this next quote, I want to claim just openly that this firmly puts me in the nerd camp, and I belong there, and it's okay. So it's a quote from The Lord of the Rings. Good. There were 4 people at Bellevue First who had never seen it or read it. I know. Well, before we publicly shame them, is there anyone here who's never seen or read The Lord of the Rings?
That's not a shame.
Not
to make sure that they do.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I know, I'm kidding about the shame thing. I think we might have a special day-long marathon where we all get together. We've got the big screens. We'll pop some popcorn. There are deep spiritual lessons in there, especially around Sam. So the next part I'm going to say, for those who've never read it or seen it, it's going to sound so dorky. And I apologize. So there's this wizard. Can't believe I'm saying this out loud. There's a wizard named Gandalf, and he's talking to Galadriel, the elf queen. And to tell you how dorky I am, I know that this line was in the movie, but not the books. So, very dorky. So, the wizard, Gandalf, is talking to the elf queen, and she asks, why Bilbo? Now, Bilbo was a small person, a hobbit, a little person. And Bilbo had been given this very important role to be a part of saving this world. And the elf queen Galadriel says, why Bilbo? Why this one small person? What good can he do, this one person, in the face of such corruption and chaos and evil? And Gandalf answers, some people believe that it is only great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I have found. It is the small, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love. Why, Bilbo? Perhaps because I am afraid, and he gives me courage. Does that make you want to watch the movies now for those who haven't? No, Beth is saying no. It's amazing, Beth.
It was Frodo, not Bilbo. Frodo.
Is?
Frodo's in The Lord of the Rings. Bilbo is a hobbit.
Yes, but it's the same people. So, yes, it's The Hobbit, but Lord of the Rings franchise. So, yes, I know. Yes.
I'm not talking about Bilbo. I'm sorry, I'm being a geek.
No, that's good. That's good. I'll have to go back to my...
Talking about Frodo who was taking the ring.
Let's go back and review because according to my sources, it's Bilbo. So we'll do this after so people won't get up and leave on us. But we'll get back to Mary. They're like, oh, thank goodness. This is why I think this Sunday is special. And it's why I think our Catholic friends can be our teachers here. And it's why I deeply wish our Protestant ancestors hadn't been quite so thorough when they tossed all the Catholic stuff out, because we need Mary, and I believe that Mary can give us courage as well. When the angel Gabriel shows up and says, God has a part for you to play in the restoration of the world, not saying that exactly. And she answers initially, rightly, by saying, me? How can this be? Little old me. And she's right to ask this, because none of us are equipped to save the world. Not a single one of us. The best we can do is what Mary teaches us. And it's to do the good that is ours to do. The best we can do is to carry Christ with us as we leave this place of worship into our homes and into the grocery stores and into traffic and our places of work, as we walk and work and live day by day. Each of us can do something that matters. And this is what Mary teaches us. I can virtually guarantee that every single one of us is here today because on that winding road of your life, maybe when you were a teenager and not so lovable, maybe you were at a dark place in your life, who knows, there was somebody who stepped into your life and did something that mattered. That mattered. And this is what Mary teaches us, that each of us has some good that we are called to do that perhaps only we can do. And so when we ask, like Mary, how can this be? We have this beautiful and holy moment where she says that question, how can this be? Me? Like, what good can I do? And then there's that beautiful pause. And then she says those three words, let it be. And so you might ask, well, what is mine to do? Frederick Buechner talks about this, and this is a quote where you may have heard this before, where he says, the place God calls you is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. What is yours to do? What is mine to do? Well, what brings you to life? What brings us to life? Where are you skilled or experienced? What brings you joy? It's going to be different for each one of us, but we each have something. Is it music? Is it art? Is it sports? Is it psychology? What is it that brings you to life? And where does that fit into the needs of the world? At a previous church, I think they desperately wanted me to be a civil rights march leader. And in all honesty, I kind of wish I was, but that is not who I am. But hopefully, I have other gifts and other graces that God can use wherever God sees fit to use them. But it's probably not going to be to organize and lead that march. At least not right now. Maybe tomorrow might be different. Take what brings you to life, what brings you joy, and bring that to where the world needs it and just plant some seeds. Part of what Mary teaches us is that it takes time. We live in a world where we want to see immediate results. We text somebody and they better text back instantly, or if we're on our phone and we try to go to a website or something and it's delayed about 4 seconds, we're just like, why is this taking so long? We are an impatient people, and we forget that sometimes all things, but especially good deeds and making the world better, takes time. Seeds planted in the ground take time to grow, right? And babies in the belly don't come out after a day. The work of our hands, the work of our hearts takes time. But that doesn't mean the labor is in vain. And I will point out that one of the remarkable stories of St. Peter's is that the beginning conversations for your affordable housing project, those of you who've been on that team, do you remember, according to the official records, when you started talking about it? 2011. That's like 100 years ago. 2011. 13 years ago. Things take time, right? Good works take time, and that's part of the lesson today. It doesn't mean the labor's in vain. Our work sometimes might seem small or insignificant, but honestly, if we look at the lineage of Christ and we look at the history of God's people, we look at the history of this church and of the Christian church, it's not a bunch of superstars. It's a bunch of ordinary, flawed, normal people exactly like us who offered day by day their small and probably sometimes shaky yeses to God. Each of them in their time said, okay, let it be. And I doubt these folks could have fathomed the difference they would make when they said, yes, okay, let it be. We are called, each of us, to participate in God's restorative story. And this Advent, today, we're looking at words that are at the beginning of the Christ story, which is the beginning of our story, really. And the words that Gabriel speaks to Mary are also words that we can hear this morning. Greetings. God has a job for you. But don't be afraid. And so as we take this next step towards Bethlehem, let us learn from Mary. Each good work, no matter how small, is a thread in the fabric of God's own ongoing creation story where love does overcome and peace does prevail and new life emerges. Let us remember that our efforts, though they might seem modest, are part of a larger divine tapestry, just like these quilts. With God's help, may our acts of love and works of justice lead to the flourishing of all people. And so receive this blessing, O people of God. You are uniquely created and situated to bring light into the world. May you find courage this season to do the good that is yours to do, because it matters. May you see the ripples of your actions expand outward, touching lives and mending the fabric of our shared humanity. In God's grace, may it be so, and amen. So we're going